NexKel sat alone in the dim light of the mess hall. The soft hum of the ship filled the quiet space. Outside, stars blinked cold and distant against the black sky. The air smelled faintly of burnt metal and recycled oxygen. He rubbed his tired eyes and stared at the empty table before him. Memories stirred deep inside. His kind had seen many wars, but none like the one with the humans, the species from Earth, the ones who laughed at gravity itself. NexKel's claws tapped the table steadily, matching the beat of his thoughts. He remembered the first time he met them. A human fleet dropped into their sector without warning. Loud and brash, they charged in with a strange kind of madness. The NexKel commanders called it reckless. The humans did not fear the pull of gravity on their bodies. Instead, they seemed to mock it. They leapt higher, ran faster, and fell harder than any other species NexKel had seen. Their ships darted through space with wild agility, flinging themselves into maneuvers that no NexKel pilot dared to try. Quinlex, the scientist, once told NexKel that humans had evolved under gravity's constant pull. It shaped their muscles, bones, and minds. But instead of surrendering, they learned to master it. They turned gravity into a weapon. The memory of their first battle came back sharp and clear. Explosions lit the void with fiery blooms. The NexKel fleet moved in tight formations, relying on precision and discipline. Meanwhile, the human ships zoomed in unpredictable arcs. Suddenly, a human fighter dove straight through a gravity well, spinning wildly. The NexKel gunners hesitated, confused by the impossible move. Rachel Cross led the humans. Her voice crackled over the comms. Bold, steady, and fearless. Her soldiers followed her with fierce loyalty. Even her brother Ryan, a young soldier barely out of training, charged headlong into danger. NexKel remembered how the humans fought side by side with his troops. They taught the NexKel new ways to move and strike. At first, his commanders doubted the humans' strange tactics. But slowly, respect grew. The humans laughed in the face of danger. They jumped from cliffs in battle zones. They ran barefoot across burning sand. Gravity never held them down. It challenged them, yes. But they met it with joy, not fear. The ship's engines pulsed softly. NexKel leaned back, eyes closing for a moment. The hallway outside echoed with distant footsteps. The hum of life continued around him. He felt the weight of years settle on his scales. This story was not just a tale from the past. The humans had changed the galaxy's rules. Every species had learned to respect Earth's military doctrine. NexKel opened his eyes and stared at the empty chair beside him. A new generation would listen soon. They would learn why the species that laughs at gravity became the galaxy's greatest warriors. The stars outside shimmered quietly. In their cold light, NexKel smiled. The story was only beginning. The battle began just as the twin suns dipped below the horizon. The sky turned a deep, burning orange. Shadows stretched long across the cracked earth. NexKel's ship hovered silently above the valley floor. The air smelled sharp, like ozone and dust. The quiet was thicker than usual. Suddenly, the ground shook with a thunderous roar. Enemy war machines burst from the canyon's edge. They moved like giant beasts, stomping and grinding through the rocky soil. Their weapons glowed cold blue, casting eerie light on the twisted metal. The NexKel troops tightened their grip on their rifles. Their hearts pounded in their chests. Quinlex, the scientist, stood next to NexKel on the command deck. His eyes darted to the readouts. "They are using gravity suppressors," he said. "Why have never seen this technology in combat?" The machines seemed to float slightly. Their feet barely touched the ground. They advanced with unnatural ease. NexKel frowned. "We must adapt quickly," he said. "Gravity is our advantage. Without it, they are unpredictable." He glanced toward the distant ridge. There, a small group of figures appeared. They moved unlike any soldiers NexKel had seen. They ran with strange grace. Their bodies twisted and spun as if weightless. Rachel Cross led the humans. Her armor shone dimly in the fading light. She moved with a confident ease. Ryan Cross, her brother, followed closely. His rifle was ready, his eyes sharp. The humans seemed to laugh at the very rules of gravity. They leapt over rocks that should have been too high. They fell and bounced back up without pause. It was as if the ground barely held them. NexKel watched, amazed and wary. How do they move like that? He wondered aloud. Quinlex shrugged. Their bodies must react differently to gravity fields. Possibly they manipulate it internally. The thought was strange. The Nexari had no such ability. Their combat relied on heavy armor and steady footing. Meanwhile, the enemy machines advanced, firing pulses that made the air hum. The Nexari returned fire. Bolts of energy streaked through the smoke and dust. Explosions rocked the valley. The ground cracked and spat stones. The battle raged with fierce intensity. Yet all NexKel could focus on was the humans. Rachel and her team darted between the war machines. They used the terrain like it was a playground. Rocks became stepping stones. Gaps in the battlefield turned into launch pads. She threw a grenade that exploded beneath a machine's foot. The enemy stumbled, but stayed upright. The humans didn't slow. They jumped higher, farther, laughing as they moved. Suddenly, Ryan slid down a slope and landed on the back of a machine. His hands gripped a panel. He ripped it open and shoved a device inside. The machine shuddered violently. Sparks flew from its joints. It collapsed with a heavy crash. The humans cheered softly. Their joy was strange in the middle of war. This was unlike any fighting he had known. The humans seemed to turn gravity into a toy. They played with it, ignored its laws. Quinlex muttered, "They defy gravity itself. This changes everything." The commander nodded. "We must learn from them, or we will lose." The battle shifted. The enemy machines grew cautious. They hesitated, unsure how to fight creatures who could leap and spin above their reach. The humans pressed forward, their movements fluid and fearless. Their laughter echoed across the valley, mixing with the sounds of gunfire and explosions. NexKel felt a strange thrill. He remembered his early days as a warrior. He had never seen such freedom in movement. The humans seemed to laugh at death and gravity both. Their spirit was a weapon as sharp as any blade. As the sun fully set, the battle ended. The enemy retreated into the dark canyons, broken and beaten. The humans stood tall, breathing hard but smiling. NexKel approached Rachel. They held a bright fire. A fierce joy in being alive and fighting. "You move like the wind," he said quietly. "No, like you laugh at the earth itself." Rachel smiled. She wiped sweat from her brow. "We learned to fight without fear," she said. "Gravity is just part of the game." NexKel nodded slowly. The lesson was clear. That night, around the fire, NexKel asked Quinlex to analyze the humans' movement. Quinlex worked with his devices, scanning the soldiers. The machines hummed softly. Data streamed across bright screens. The scientist's eyes widened in surprise. "Their muscles and nerves respond faster than anything we know. Their bodies seem to generate microgravity fields." He paused. "It's like they carry a small gravity bubble." NexKel sat back, thoughtful. "A bubble that lets them float, jump, and fall lightly." Quinlex nodded. "Exactly. That's why they can defy gravity." The commander looked at the humans again. "They are not just soldiers. They are something new, something dangerous." The fire crackled, sending sparks into the cool night air. The stars above twinkled cold and distant. Yet the humans laughed softly, their voices blending with the night sounds. The air smelled of burnt wood and sweat. NexKel felt a mix of awe and fear. The species that laughs at gravity was unlike any he had fought before. He remembered the stories of old wars. He remembered the pride of the Nexari warriors. But now, that pride felt challenged. The humans had changed the rules. They had shown a new way to fight and live. NexKel knew this was only the beginning. As the night deepened, he thought about the future. A future where gravity might not be a chain. A future where laughter could defy the weight of worlds. The Nexari had to adapt, or fall into the dust of forgotten wars. Meanwhile, the humans prepared for the next battle. Their spirits were high. Their laughter echoed once more, bright against the dark. They moved like shadows in wind, free and wild. The species that laughs at gravity had revealed their true power. NexKel whispered to himself, "This is the first revelation. We will never be the same." The stars watched silently as the new warriors dreamed under their light. The game had changed, and the humans led the way, laughing as they flew above the gravity that bound all others. NexKel sat back, his eyes distant but sharp. The room around him hummed with quiet light, casting soft shadows on his weathered skin. He spoke slowly, his voice low and steady. "The humans," he began, "they do not fight like us." The air smelled faintly of oil and burnt metal. Outside, the stars blinked cold and distant. Inside, the quiet buzz of the command center felt alive. NexKel's memories stirred, vivid and sharp. He could hear the distant thud of explosions, the sharp crack of energy weapons. But most of all, he remembered the strange ways humans moved in battle. "They laugh at gravity," he said, eyes narrowing. "But not just because they jump higher or fall faster. It's how they use it, how they break the rules." He leaned forward, voice dropping to a whisper, as if sharing a secret. "Other species plan carefully. They predict every move. They build strong walls and lines of defense. They throw those plans away." The room seemed to hold its breath. NexKel's stories were always full of surprise, but this one felt different. He spoke of battles where humans seemed reckless, where their tactics defied logic. Yet somehow they won. He described a battle on a rocky moon. Jagged cliffs rose sharply against a dark sky. The enemy waited, confident and still, their weapons charged, ready to blast any attacker to dust. But humans came not in lines, but scattered. They ran up steep slopes. They slid down loose gravel. They used gravity's pull and pushed to their advantage. They jumped from ledges, not caring about the fall. Their bodies absorbed the shock. Their armor flexed and shifted. Suddenly, humans appeared where no one expected. Behind enemy lines, above their defenses, even inside their command centers. They used gravity to confuse and outflank. The enemy could not keep track. NexKel's voice grew louder, eyes bright. "They use what others fear. They embrace chaos." Meanwhile, Quinlex, the scientist, watched closely. He understood tactics, but not this madness. How could such reckless moves work? NexKel continued, weaving the story with vivid detail. "The humans moved like dancers in zero gravity. But they did not float. They pushed hard and landed harder. Their weapons fired in quick bursts. Their teams communicated in shouts and signals. Their laughter echoed in the chaos." NexKel smiled faintly. They smiled at danger, at falling. The smell of smoke seemed to fill the room as NexKel described the battle's climax. The humans, surrounded and outnumbered, pulled one final trick. They used gravity fields to hurl themselves like living missiles. They crashed through walls and barriers. They exploded in bursts of energy and fury. Their technology was advanced, but their minds were trapped. They could not predict such wild moves. Their formations shattered. Their confidence died. Rachel Cross, the human commander NexKel fought beside, led those attacks. She knew her soldiers trusted her. Together, they laughed at gravity. Together, they broke the enemy's will. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. He looked at Quinlex and nodded slowly. "That is why humans are feared. Not because they have stronger weapons, but because they have no fear of falling." The scientist's eyes widened. He pictured soldiers leaping from cliffs, smiling as they fell. He imagined their bodies moving with the pull of gravity, not against it. NexKel added, "They adapt. They use what others avoid. Their bodies heal fast. Their minds think fast. Their spirits never break." The story unfolded like a dance. Battles became poems of chaos and order. Humans moved through gravity's grip like fish in water. They twisted and turned. They used the planet's pull to strike hard and vanish. The enemy could only watch. They could not understand. They could not fight. NexKel's voice softened. "I learned from them. I saw hope in their madness." The air shifted. The hum of the command center seemed warmer, alive with new energy. The strange courage that humans carried was infectious. Suddenly, a sharp noise cut through the room. A distant explosion echoed from outside. The present war was never far away. The past and the present blended. NexKel's memories were lessons for the future. His joints cracked softly. "The second revelation is this," he said firmly. Gravity is not a cage, and humans wield it like a blade. The words hung in the air. Quinlex nodded, understanding deepening. Humans did not just accept gravity. They mastered it in ways no one else could. NexKel looked out the window. Stars twinkled cold and silent. "We fear the fall," he said quietly. "They laugh at it." The room felt colder now. The story was over, but its meaning burned bright. Unorthodox tactics, wild courage, and a fearless mind made humans the species to watch. His voice was steady, strong. "That is why we follow them. That is why we fight beside them. Because they laugh at gravity, and in doing so they fly." The story ended like a song. Clear, simple, powerful. Quinlex sat in silence, letting the words settle. Outside, the stars shone on. Gravity held all things tight. They changed the rules forever. NexKel's eyes gleamed as he began the final tale. The old commander leaned forward, resting his hands on the worn table. Outside, the twin suns dipped low. Shadows stretched across the room. The air smelled faintly of burnt metal and earth. He spoke slowly, making each word count. "The hardest battle wasn't just about tactics or weapons," NexKel said. "It was about trust and friendship." He paused, letting the weight settle. Across the stars, alliances break fast. Not with Rachel and Ryan. He pictured the scene in his mind. The battlefield was a rocky canyon. Explosions popped like thunder around them. The NexKel troops moved cautiously, weapons ready. But the humans charged forward. Suddenly, a massive blast shattered the silence. A NexKel squad was trapped below a fallen rock. The enemy had them pinned. Their energy shields flickered weakly. Panic rose like a storm cloud. NexKel knew they would be lost without help. Rachel didn't hesitate. She led a squad to the trapped soldiers. Her voice cut through the chaos, clear and steady. "Hold on! We're coming!" Her team pushed through debris and fire. The NexKel watched, amazed. The humans didn't just fight for themselves. They risked everything for their allies. Meanwhile, Ryan spotted enemy snipers hidden on a ridge. He moved fast, crawling low among the stones. The wind carried the faint scent of burning ozone. Quietly, he took aim. The snipers fell without a sound. He saved the whole group from a deadly surprise. NexKel smiled at the memory. The humans didn't just act brave. They acted with heart. "That day," he said, "we saw more than courage. We saw something unbreakable. The bond between us." The battle raged on for hours. The enemy pushed hard, trying to split the alliance. Explosions shook the ground beneath them. The sky glowed red with fire. Yet the humans held the line. They adapted, using their environment like a new weapon. Climbing walls and swinging on cables, they fought like creatures born for the fight. Quinlex, the scientist, watched from the command ship. He studied the humans' movements and strategy. "They think differently," Quinlex had said. "Not just with logic and instinct." He marveled at how quickly Rachel and Ryan coordinated with NexKel forces. Their signals were simple but effective. Suddenly, the enemy launched a final attack. A massive drop ship descended from above. It carried elite soldiers armed with strange, glowing weapons. Their shields flickered. The humans stood firm. Rachel gathered her squad and gave quick orders. "Cover left flank! Don't let them break through." The clash was brutal. Metal screamed against metal. Energy bolts lit up the smoke-filled air. Rachel and Ryan fought side by side, defending their friends. The NexKel felt a surge of hope. They could hold the line because of these humans. After hours of fighting, the enemy retreated. The Allies were battered but victorious. NexKel looked at the humans with new respect. "Their courage saved us all," he said softly. But more than that, their loyalty did. They never left a comrade behind. Later, in the quiet aftermath, the soldiers gathered around a small fire. The stars twinkled overhead. The smell of sweat mixed with the sharp scent of burned fuel. Rachel passed water to the NexKel troops. Ryan told jokes to lighten the mood. Laughter echoed softly in the night. NexKel noticed how the humans connected with the NexKel. They shared stories, food, and warmth. The differences in skin, shape, and language faded. All that mattered was the bond forged in battle. It was stronger than any weapon. "This," NexKel said, as why humans changed our war forever. They brought something new, something we never had. He looked each listener in the eyes. Trust. These are their true weapons. The room grew quiet as the story sank in. Outside, the twin moons rose high. The night breeze whispered through the trees. NexKel's voice softened. We still remember that day. The day we learned to laugh at gravity together. Because no weight is heavier than the bond between friends. He leaned back, tired but proud. That is the third revelation, the one that lasts longest. His eyes closed briefly. Then he opened them, sharp and clear again. Remember this lesson. Remember that trust can move mountains, even in the darkest wars. The listeners sat silent, feeling the truth deep inside. They knew the story wasn't just history, a light to follow when hope seemed lost. NexKel's stories had shown them why Earth's military was feared and respected. Not just for its strength. For the humans who fought with fierce loyalty, who never backed down, who laughed in the face of danger and gravity itself. The old commander smiled once more. We honor the humans, and we stand with them. Because in this universe, that bond is our greatest power. Outside, the winds shifted. Stars blinked like distant fires. The past and the future met in that moment. The revelation shared, and the species that laughs at gravity remained unbroken. The sky above the battlefield turned a dull, smoky gray. Dust swirled in twisting columns across the cracked ground. The air smelled of burning metal and burnt ozone. NexKel stood on the ridge, watching the enemy forces advance. Their shadows flickered in the dying light like ghosts. Meanwhile, Rachel Cross tightened her grip on her rifle. Her eyes burned with fierce determination. The enemy moved in waves. Heavy machines stomped forward, crushing everything beneath their weight. But the humans did not retreat. They climbed aboard their gravity-shifting vehicles. The machines hummed and glowed with a strange light. Suddenly, the vehicles lifted off the ground. They floated like balloons, defying the heavy gravity that had crushed so many before. He had never seen such technology up close. The ships twisted and spun in the air, moving faster than any ground machine. The humans laughed, their voices high and clear over the crackle of radios. It was a sound NexKel would never forget. The battle began with a roar. Explosions shook the ground. Fireballs arced through the thick air, leaving trails of smoke behind. However, the humans did not fall back. Instead, they moved higher, floating above the enemy lines like birds. Gravity no longer held them down. They struck with precision and speed. Quinlex, watching from the command center, adjusted his sensors. The human vehicles emitted strange energy waves. They bent the rules of physics in ways no other species could manage. Quinlex felt a shiver run down his spine. This was the secret of their power. This was why every species feared Earth's military doctrine. The enemy responded with artillery fire. Huge cannons roared, sending deadly shells soaring through the air. But the human vehicles darted and spun, dodging the blasts with ease. Meanwhile, Ryan Cross led a squadron in a daring assault. Their ship swooped low, unleashing a hailstorm of plasma bolts. The enemy ground forces screamed as their machines exploded. Flames erupted, lighting the battlefield like a blazing sun. The humans laughed again, their voices ringing out over the chaos. It was a sound of defiance, of victory in the making. NexKel raised his hand. His troops braced themselves. They fired their weapons into the sky. Bright beams of energy cut through the smoke and dust. But the humans were too fast. They twisted and turned, dodging every attack. It was like trying to catch a shadow. Suddenly, the humans dropped from the sky. They landed with soft thuds, boots barely touching the ground. Their vehicles transformed, becoming solid metal suits. Soldiers poured out, weapons ready. They charged forward, fearless and fast. The ground troops met them in a brutal clash. The air filled with the sharp scent of ozone and burnt gunpowder. Rachel Cross moved like a force of nature. She commanded with a calm voice that cut through the noise. Her soldiers followed her without question. NexKel felt a strange mix of awe and fear. These humans laughed at gravity. They turned the battlefield into their playground. Their courage was unlike anything he had ever seen. Even his own troops hesitated before charging. The humans pushed deeper into enemy lines. Their suits absorbed blasts that would have shattered any other armor. Their movements were fluid and quick, like dancers in a deadly ballet. The enemy faltered, confusion spreading like wildfire. Meanwhile, Quinlec studied the battlefield carefully. He noticed the human vehicles emitted pulses that twisted gravity itself. They bent it, lifted it, and even briefly stopped it. This gave the humans a strange advantage. They fought in 3 dimensions, while others were stuck on the ground. The enemy commanders shouted orders. Desperation crept into their voices. They sent their elite soldiers to flank the humans. But the ground shifted at odd angles. The humans moved where no one could follow. Their laughter echoed through the tunnels and trenches. Suddenly, a massive enemy mech stumbled into the clearing. It loomed like a mountain, its weapons blazing death. The humans did not flinch. Ryan Cross aimed his plasma rifle and fired a steady stream of glowing energy. The blast hit the mech's weak spot and exploded in a shower of sparks. The mech toppled, crashing to the ground. Dust rose in a thick cloud. The enemy forces staggered, losing heart. The humans pressed the attack, relentless and wild. Gravity no longer ruled the fight. It had become a weapon in their hands. NexKel thought about the stories he had heard. The humans were said to laugh at gravity. They had mastered the force that had oppressed every other species. They had turned it into a tool of freedom and power. Rachel Cross led the final charge. Her squad moved through the ruined battlefield like a storm. The enemy fell back, broken and defeated. The air was thick with smoke, but the laughter of the humans never died. It filled the empty spaces, a promise of a new dawn. The sun began to rise. Its light cut through the gloom, painting the sky in soft gold. The humans stood victorious. Their vehicles floated gently down, resting on the ground once more. NexKel felt something shift inside him. The humans had won against impossible odds. They had laughed in the face of gravity and won. Their doctrine would change the galaxy forever. NexKel knew he would tell this story for many years. The story of the species that laughs at gravity. The battlefield grew quiet. The fires burned low. But the memory of the fight stayed alive. It echoed in the hearts of all who had seen it. The laughter of the humans had become a legend, a new force in the universe. And with that laughter came hope. The hope that no force, no matter how strong, could hold them down forever. The humans had shown the galaxy that gravity was not a cage, one they were ready to meet. NexKel looked up at the brightening sky. He smiled for the first time in years. The humans had changed everything. They had rewritten the rules. They were the species that laughed at gravity, and nothing would ever be the same. The battle ended as the sun sank behind distant hills. Smoke curled upward, blending with the cooling night air. NexKel stood quietly watching the horizon. His armor bore scratches and dents, each telling a story of close calls and fierce fights. Around him, the soldiers, both human and Nexari, caught their breath. The ground beneath their feet still hummed with lingering energy from the battle. Rachel Cross moved among the troops. Her face showed strength and relief. She checked the wounded, offering short words of comfort. Her eyes met NexKel's. No words passed between them. A deep respect filled that glance. Meanwhile, Quinlec studied the battlefield with thoughtful eyes. Scattered debris and broken weapons lay everywhere. The air smelled of burnt metal and scorched earth. He noted the strange patterns left by human tactics. These moves defied the usual limits we Nexari expect in combat. Quinlec felt a spark of curiosity. Humans fought not just with weapons but with unpredictable minds. The stars twinkled overhead as night wrapped the world in quiet. The campfires flickered softly, casting warm light on tired faces. Soldiers shared simple meals. Laughter echoed light and free. After months of tension, a new bond formed here, between species, between hearts. NexKel sat beside the fire. He reached into his pack and pulled out an old, worn photo. It showed Earth's blue oceans and green forests. That planet, so far from his home, had changed everything. Humans laughed at gravity, at limits, at fear itself. They taught him that courage was not about strength alone. It was about hope and unity. Suddenly, a faint hum rose from the horizon. The fleet's ships appeared, silhouetted against the dark sky. They glided smoothly, their lights blinking like stars come to life. NexKel felt a surge of pride. This victory was more than a battle won. It was the start of a new era. Rachel approached NexKel again. Her voice was quiet, but steady. She spoke of peace and future alliances, about shared knowledge and respect, about building worlds together, not tearing them apart. She believed in a future where no species would stand alone. The soldiers around them listened. The hope in Rachel's words burned brighter than the fires. Quinlex nodded slowly, understanding the weight of what they had achieved. This was not just a win for Earth. It was a win for all who dared to dream bigger. As dawn broke, light spilled across the land. The cold night gave way to warmth. Birds began their morning songs. The smell of fresh earth filled the air. NexKel stood, feeling the new day on his skin. He looked toward the horizon, where adventure still awaited. The Allies gathered their gear. They prepared to move forward. The wounds from battle still stung, but their spirits soared. They were no longer separate forces. They were a united front, stronger than any one species alone. Rachel and NexKel shared a brief nod. No promises, only trust. They understood the road ahead would be tough. However, together, they could face anything. The planet beneath their feet had witnessed enough war. Now it would see peace. Quinlex took a deep breath and scanned the sky. The stars faded as the sun rose higher. New questions filled his mind. What would humans teach next? What surprises awaited in the vast unknown? The future was uncertain, but exciting. Meanwhile, the camp buzzed with quiet activity. Soldiers tended their gear, engineers checked ship systems, medics cared for the injured. The scene was calm but alive. Each person felt part of something greater than themselves. NexKel thought back to the first day he met humans. Their laughter had seemed strange then, almost reckless. Now he saw its power. It carried hope and defiance. It fought against fear and gravity alike. The story of this war would be told for generations. Other species would listen and learn. They would respect Earth's military might and the spirit behind it. Humans did not just fight battles. They reshaped fate itself. The sun climbed higher. Light spilled into every shadow. NexKel took one last look at the camp. He whispered a silent promise to protect this fragile alliance, to honor the laughter that defied the stars. The species that laughed at gravity had changed the galaxy. They showed everyone that limits were meant to be broken. That courage was more than muscle or weaponry. It was heart and mind united. And so the new era began. Quiet, strong, and full of hope. The future belonged to those who dared to laugh in the face of the impossible. NexKel smiled, ready for what came next. The journey was far from over. But now, they walked it together.